Hello, this is Mark A. Lewis. This is the Sacred Village podcast. I'm here today with my good friend, Craig Johansen. Is that how you pronounce it? Yeah. And we're going to be talking about men's work and life in general. So my guest here, Craig, he's been a stalwart champion of men's health in our community, Salmon Arm, British Columbia. We have about a little more than 20,000 people, and surrounding area. It's a small town ostensibly, but I guess it's also kind of a little bit larger than a small town. But there's this core group of people, people that are drawn to spirituality, but also just being a healthy human being, and it's a growing community. There is a previous incarnation of this that I do see, and I noticed that it has been around for a while, but there's also a new movement that's happening, and perhaps it's just my point of view because I've only lived here for 3 years, but it does feel like there's something shifting. I suppose more people gravitating, and for anybody listening, perhaps you can relate to this. If you are living in your own small town and seeing these shifts happen. That's certainly happening in Salmon Arm. The energy here is very powerful. It's very gentle and also powerful. There's all sorts of people here, but generally speaking, the vibration and the sensibility, the feeling, there's calm and there's resilience, which is a good segue into today's episode with Craig. Let's get right into it, Craig. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to my studio, which is a dome ceremony space that I've converted. Today it's a podcast room. Tomorrow it'll be a ceremony space. But welcome to our space. And you've been here in different contexts, but now we're here having a conversation. We're recording the conversation, and people will listen to the conversation. So how you doing?
Good. Thank you, Mark. Thank you for the honor to sit with you again. As always, it's always a pleasure driving up on the property and feeling the incredible energy that this land offers when we slow down and just allow ourselves to see and feel. So thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here with you.
You're welcome. Just a little bit of context. So my partner and I, we purchased land to develop 80 acres of land to develop into 5-acre parcels. So something conventional, but we've always had an intention for it to be community driven as much as possible. There's certainly a balancing act, but ever since we've lived here, we've held ceremony, we've held gatherings, and people have referred to it as the land, which is like, I always catch that because it's like, it feels appropriate. And yet somehow it's playing into this new age, new movement, new state of consciousness or new way of gathering that's happening in this town. It plays into that. And the reverence, speaking about the land being separate from us. It's not about ownership. It's about stewardship. And, the more people that come here, the more ceremony we do, it carries that energy. So it begins to have its own personality in a way, like its own resonance. So yeah, just a bit of a segue there, but more broadly speaking, you are somebody that I really admire and appreciate because of how much effort and care you put into supporting other people, on their journeys, yourself on your journey, bringing people together. You're a gatherer like me, like of people. You and I share that. We have that common trait, in our makeup, in our personality. And so I really appreciate having you out there and know that you're an ally, on this path of just doing the best we can, right? I mean, It's just one foot in front of the other, but
one day at a time, one moment at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, beautiful.
And so I was wanting to start a men's group because I didn't believe there was here. I was informed that there wasn't one, and that there had been one, but it had ended, it had expired, which ended up, as far as I understand it, that was factual. However, the very month that I decided to initiate the men's circle, I ran into a mutual friend, Jamie Trevelyan, and I didn't actually, I'd sweated with him. I didn't know where I'd met him. But anyways, we ended up talking and realizing that we'd met each other. And I told him about this vision, and he says, well, I'm going to one next month. And it turns out that at that very time, you and a group of other men had started a men's circle. That's 1.0, and that's 3 Two and a half,
Yeah, almost 3 years ago.
almost 3 years ago. And now we're getting into what I would, that had a life, it had variations, it had transformation. And now we're getting into a proper 2.0, it feels like. So let's go back. Let's talk about 1.0. What was that experience like? What did you learn? What did you see? What's going on out there? And, just tell us, whatever comes to your heart here about that journey.
It's well, first off, I'm really glad that this is being recorded and not being visually, because as Mark was kind of allowing me to see me, I definitely have that shyness or that heart come out where I want to almost have a cry. So I'm glad this is just being recorded and not being visual, so I can actually
Yeah.
compose myself a little bit better. But
Yeah.
oh, my heart was, I think for me, the men's group represented really, I guess, my own journey, my own healing opportunity that I never had when I was younger. I looked for a long time for either a mentor or somebody that would allow me to be me, that would allow me to just be what I felt I was supposed to be versus what the world told me I was supposed to be. So it was, I had started one on my own property a number of years before, and Ty Burton, one of the other gentlemen that was in the creation of this, and some of the other gentlemen that were there, Peter, Aaron, John, and really some really beautiful men that were brought in by the Hospice Society and asked to create space for men that they were witnessing, that there was no space for men that were grieving. There was no space for men that were having trouble in life, just whether it was grieving a job, grieving a partner, or a loved one that had passed. There was no space for men to come together and hold space for other men. And we were invited, myself and some incredible men that were invited to create this. And Ty Burton and myself had been talking for a number of years that we needed to create something. We were thinking about it. We were putting it out to the universe, and like, just, okay, we're going to be ready when it comes. We're going to be ready. And it was interesting when it came, it just worked. It just, all of a sudden, even though we had, again, getting men together, you have your ups and downs and everybody's personality. And there was definitely at times where the personalities or the manhood clashed. But all in all, it was, even working through my own shit, it was beautiful to see how men can truly come together and feel safe to share, feel safe to be among other men and be seen, where they most likely in the entire life had never been seen or ever felt safe enough to speak, or safe enough to feel vulnerable enough to actually come to a place that they've always wanted. And I think for myself, that's really what it was. It was, even though, I was called on to kind of step up, to kind of be in that leadership role, I never really saw myself as a leader. I just knew that it was something that I wish I had. And I think that was really for myself, the launching point to create and be a part of something that has significantly, on a level, cellular level, has changed my life. And the opportunity to be in a space with men and be okay, like yourself, Mark. I remember when you first came in, and it was the first time or the second time, you asked if I was the leader, and you specifically asked, "Are you the leader?" And I actually couldn't answer. I'm like, I actually don't want to be the leader. I actually just want to feel safe to be there. And I guess I was that person, but I never looked at myself as that person. So yeah, it's been an incredible, 1.0, as you said, that has driven myself to grow, has driven myself to see other men as they are, and even see myself as I am, human, the part that I make mistakes daily, the ups and downs of trying to create a safe place for multiple men. And sometimes it was successful, sometimes we had some pretty eventful moments, but each one was spiritually, was significantly on a level that I don't know I would have ever experienced without the opportunity to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. The reason that I asked you that, because my, let's say, spiritual upbringing was in indigenous ceremonies and in indigenous tradition. And so that leadership hierarchy is very much a part of that. It looks different, from one tradition to the next, but that is a common thread. And even at the previous men's circle that I'd been to, there was no leader ostensibly. There still was. We had gone through a process of, okay, there are things that are working, there are things that are not working. How do we steer the ship, and who's making the final decision? Frankly, my point of view is that, leadership of elder council is of primary importance. And then choosing that elder council, choosing somebody to ostensibly be the chief or the leader, but someone, who does answer still to the elders, of course, without question. Intuitively, I felt we need to understand, we need to define what the decision-making structure is, not the power structure, because we're giving our power away and we're aware of that, right? This is shadow work. There will be opportunities, or there will be thresholds where we're going to have to make shifts and changes. So what does that look like? There was two things happening that I observed, and one was that there was a safe place for people to come and share. That was happening. And then there was this whole other thing happening that was like this smoke and mirrors shadow work that was happening with people that had been there, the men that had been there longer, which in my opinion is golden, because that's where you get the deeper work and the deeper reflections, so we can learn about ourselves outside of relationship. We can actually go through some drama and through some hard sort of reflections and challenging conversations that aren't relegated just to our monogamous relationship. Like, because that's the only other place that we were having them. And that was painful, right? To have to do that. I mean, and those obviously still happen, but to have practice about being centered, about seeing people, make a reaction this way or a response that way, and then picking up on the responses and sort of like choosing to do our best to do our work so we don't become the reactive one in the conversation. And there's so much feedback in these environments. It is like a ceremony. It's not a ceremony. It's just this broader scope of community, going back to a bygone era, where our ancestors come from, where men hung out with men and women hung out with women. And in a way, I feel that relieve the pressure of relationship, and even the relationships that I've witnessed, like my parents, and they're into their late 70s now, and they're staying together. It's a sacred relationship, but my God, do they bicker? And it's about the same things over and over. And it's like, is that really necessary? I mean, that's what I was like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So I was in searching for something different. I think I called in more challenging relationships to dig into that and to realize that, oh, okay, that's unresolved trauma.
Yeah.
Those are childhood traumas that are manifesting and that are playing out over and over again. And they've just made the choice to say, we're going to stay together. And for the most part, we're pretty happy. And we're okay with being blind to the other stuff. And we're just going to stay blind because it's just like, it works for us. Fair enough, right? But it did not work for me. And so like this whole movement, this men's movement, and anyways, it's beautiful. It's fascinating. I noticed that, some men were here one week and they were gone the next, and it's just a part of it. It's a part of that fight or flight that's in us. And how do we come back? Do we go home, dust ourselves off, and look ourselves in the mirror and say, there's something unresolved there.
Yeah.
And it's in me to go back. Or we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I don't need to go back. I don't, because I know what that's like. Or do we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, I'm not ready to go back.
Yeah.
And it might be next year, it might be the year after. Like, there seems to be those three choices. And one of them is certainly authentic. It's like, okay, I know that world. I know that cycle. I don't need to be a part of that. And other is, taking that stance of responsibility. I want to be a part of the solution. And then the other is also, I guess, self-care. Like, I just need to take a step back and
I think that's for myself, Mark, for me, it was diving into this work has been one of the biggest challenges of my life on my journey, I believe that looking at my shit, looking how many masks that I've worn throughout, stepped away or run away, even that fight or flight kicking in where I don't want to be a part of this. This is getting hard. And I truly believe this is one of the most difficult journeys that any man can get his life, to look at where he's gone wrong, where the examples that he's had have gone wrong, where the examples that he didn't have went wrong or were missing.
Mhm.
And I think for myself, there has been so many opportunities that amazing men have come through. And like you said, the seeds are planted. Some stay, some go, some have confrontations. And especially as men, that's a big one, letting our letting our egos not go because it's been there to save us, but letting that part of, there is something I need to learn. There is something here that I don't need to run from. That, yeah, this is uncomfortable. Yeah, this is really hard work, but it is worth it. And I know from my own standpoint, I wouldn't have changed anything. I wouldn't have, even the frustrations that have come up, and again, trying to get any group together and agree on things is hard. Never mind men that are older or seasoned men, as I like to say, as myself. I like that. Don't want to say old, but definitely seasoned and spicy. As the white and gray hair are definitely prevalent, but that part of, I think, finally allowing others to be human was one of my biggest breakthroughs. Instead of looking at them through my expectations or my
Mm.
my eyes or my wishes for them, because that's all I've ever wanted, is for people to succeed, for people to finally see that they are worth all the fight, that they are worth the love, that they are worthy of being seen for who they are, not what they've done in life, not the mistakes they've made, but just truly be seen for who they are. And I think for myself, I've wanted that for others because I've wanted that for myself.
Mhm.
So I think for me to finally be in a place that I can actually look at other men and not have expectations. If they show up, they show up. If they don't, whatever is going on, I'm still going to be there. I will
Mhm.
be in the dark holding that torch no
Mhm.
matter what. And I think for myself, that has been part of my realization of my journey, is that's why I'm here,
Mhm.
is not to judge, not to be Superman, not to, try and save everybody, because it's not my job. And that's something I learned through this work. It's not my job to save anybody.
Mhm.
If men want to truly come and learn, then I will be the best example I can, by my work, by me facing my own shit, by me facing my demons that are still there. They pop their head up every once in a while, and I still have to slow down and catch my breath and know that this work is ongoing. This work
Mhm.
never ends. This work is something that till the day I die, I know I'm going to be doing, but also feeling the realization for my son, for my grandsons, that by doing this, and even my granddaughters and my daughters, that if I can be that example that they can look at and be like, that's the kind of man I want to be, or is that's the kind of man I want to have in my life,
Mhm.
that's what I want to be. And
Mhm.
again, not needing to be perfect, not needing to be anything except the best I can each day. How can I show up in that authenticity? How can I show up in that reverence of being a man in this day and age?
It's very beautiful. I have that image of the darkness, and then the torch goes out, time passes, and then all of a sudden, torch comes back on. And there you are. He didn't go. He came back.
Just getting a new torch, making the
Yeah.
torch burnt down. So just
Yeah.
needed a
Well,
needed a even for myself, as I've this summer we kind of took a break. I think for the first time in the last 3 years, we kind of took a little break from the group and just started back up here in a week or so. But it was the first time I was able to feel okay to take a break, instead of
yeah.
feeling like I needed to man the lighthouse, that
Yeah.
I needed to man the walls, because
Yeah.
again, the definition of manhood, if you look it up, is to man the ramparts. Is a
Mm.
man is to man the ramparts. Well, I was tired. I
Yeah.
was tired, and I just
Yeah.
needed to be allow myself to step
Yeah.
back and breathe.
Yeah. To
So
honor that.
yeah, and yeah, and truly, and and know that, and it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Know that I wasn't going to be seen as less than. I wasn't worried if somebody,
Mm-hmm.
because again, I was still there. I was still answering calls. I was still
Mm-hmm.
answering, the men, but I just took a little step back.
And with all the challenging aspects like the growth, the personal growth, and the reflection, the triggers, the other 95% of the experience of the container was men just showing up and hearing each other.
Yeah.
That's the other
Yeah.
95%.
Yeah. Huge.
And that was happening regularly
Yes.
for many men over and over and over. And so that can't be, overlooked. Mind you, the other 5%, in my opinion, is all just beautiful shadow work, right? And just, leveling up, awareness of self, awareness of others, awareness of our vulnerability, of how we respond to feeling vulnerable. Maybe we perceive the experience as being cornered, where what is actually happening is that there's just a part of us that is vulnerable, that is being seen or may be seen, and we're not used to that. And that feels like something's happening to us, but it's really happening for us if we can stay in the fire, if we can feel that heat and remain and come back, take a breath, then come back, have a smudge, and then start the conversation again. Because that the healing's happening right before our eyes in these circles. It's like you create a circle, good things will happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting you said the fire, and I had the flashback of how many beautiful sweat lodges we've had with each other, and I felt that heat from the fire actually extending there as the fire tender, and how hot that fire gets as you're getting the grandfather stones, and that heat. Literally, there's moments where it literally is singeing your eyebrows and your arm hairs, but you just step into it. You allow it to be what it needs to be. There is no push. There is no the rocks are doing what they need to do. It's just allowing yourself to handle this. Just, how do I handle this? Do I need to take this discomfort from somebody or wherever they are on their journey? Do I need to take it personally?
Totally. Or save them.
Yeah.
Save them from their discomfort.
And it's like, it's not. Yeah. That was a realization. It's not my job.
Yeah.
And that was a hard one. That's that Superman Craig. Oh, he's going to save the world, and it's I'm getting goosebumps. His is not. It's not my job. And that was a real eye opener and a really big transformation for myself. That no matter how strong I am, no how much people look at me as this person or this entity, I'm just a man. I am flesh and blood. Put on my socks and pants just like everybody else, and I am blessed.
Yeah, totally. Don't forget that one. 100%. Yeah, I think it's so simple, but it's very difficult when you're holding space for other people. If you're part of that, creating that container, to listen, respond as opposed to react, and then allow, and to not be attached to the outcome. That takes work. It takes oh, okay, I want to do something. I want to say something. I want to fix something. And sitting with those impulses, ultimately to be able to be in an intense situation and be responding, over and over and over to whatever is coming our way, as opposed to reacting, and being in our heart, being in our body with each response, to get to that space when you have trauma, like I did growing up, with, overbearing, one thing or another. A lot of it's father stuff, but it's also cultural. The female teachers that I had, and I remember a lot of situations where they saw something that did not happen. And in my heart, as a child, as like a 7-year-old, and then being put in front of the class, the humiliation, the discipline. And in retrospect, it's like these women, because I've seen this before on the playground, where children will see, one child will be hit over the head, let's say, with a train, and by a bigger kid. And he's like looking at the bigger kid, picks up the train, looks at the smaller kid next to him to his left, and hits that kid instead, right? And so, this experience with, this trauma that I feel like I was subjected to a degree, and I don't feel resentful for it, but it did feel like a reactionary thing for women in this institution, being oppressed by men generally, and probably other women, but I'm sensing there's like this masculine sort of repression and a wound, exactly, and taking it out on boys, without knowing it. Yeah, and not as a phenomenon. I can't say that for sure, but there was something to that.
Like
And so,
the subconscious side of them
yeah,
chose to see the boys being the troublemakers versus
yeah,
seeing the populace, where I had girls pick on me in grade school and I had boys pick on me in grade school. And I was always that child that actually balanced everybody. I didn't allow other kids to get picked on. I was always, even though I was a little kid, I was always the one that was, charging in to stop the fighters, charging in to make sure everybody was okay. But it was interesting because same thing, my experience with the women that were my teachers, I get into the things that happened without getting into the story, but there is a lot of wounds that were inflicted because I was a boy,
mm-hmm,
because I was supposed to be seen and not heard. I was supposed to sit there and be a good boy, and
mm-hmm,
constantly being told be a good. How am I not showing up as a good boy? And then being told repeatedly you're not a good boy.
mm-hmm,
So I think for myself, and then I think in this work, that's where I totally and truly firmly believe that men need to help men heal.
yeah,
Healed men
yeah,
have to help. It isn't, I don't think it's a woman's right or a woman's job to step into that power. I think if men see that other men can be authentic, can show up in their humanness and be there for them for support, to
mm-hmm,
me, that's what the change is, and that's what's shifting. And in this work for the last, however many years, and even since I was a little boy, it was always sticking up for other boys or other men. But it's interesting to see the men that have come through this journey with us, the men that are still with us on this journey, out of the ones that have stepped off and wanted more, have grown in manhood that I've never seen. And I've been honored to walk with these men, honored to sit, and like yourself, to see that is changing. It is shifting on a paradigm that even my partner and partners and my children look at me a different way.
mm-hmm,
The men that I have Reiki and in the energy field and the life coaching side of things, it is on a different level because I'm on a different level.
mm-hmm,
I feel that I'm a different person than I was 6 months ago, never mind 2 years ago, never mind four
yeah,
years ago.
yeah,
So I think, and to watch the journeys that we've seen or that I've witnessed with these men, and you're right, the wounds are deep. Like
mm-hmm,
those wounds of even why women hate men or men hate women, that's got to change.
yeah,
And that to me is what is being addressed in this work. There is no reason to hate women. I never trusted women. All my partners, even though I felt that I needed to dominate, which that's not who I am at the any level. But I felt that's what I needed to do to be seen. I
mm-hmm,
felt that I needed to be this stoic, like, just listen to me, don't argue, just listen.
mm-hmm.
And that wasn't right either.
Totally. Yeah, it's a very complex thing between men and women.
And
Like,
even with men and men, like,
well,
I
yeah,
understand, like,
exactly.
that's another level. Then to actually be able to look at a man in the eye and know that I am not threatening you. And sometimes, as we've seen, like you said, some men come, some men go. It's interesting to see when men have been brought by a partner or a mother, they don't seem to stay. And I think
Mm-hmm,
that's just kind of that tell sign of
mm-hmm,
they weren't ready themselves.
mm-hmm,
They're doing it for somebody else versus themselves. And that's something that I've witnessed. And I think that kind of is that way in life. Like, if unless you are ready to change and get into this work, somebody bringing you there isn't going to do anything.
mm-hmm,
Somebody feeling they want the best for you, which is awesome because we want the best for them too. But unless they actually bring themselves, and I believe it's like would be like an alcoholic or somebody that's, you know, in the drug world that has to want that change. They have to physically, spiritually, mentally want that change.
mm-hmm,
And until they're ready to do that, and I know in myself, until I truly was ready to do it, I thought I was doing it. Oh, I'm doing the work. I'm doing this. I'm reading this book, reading that book, doing this work. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, is the change, is that fundamental change in our belief. And I used to see a chubby, overweight, older gentleman that just is trying, was a good guy, would want to see the world, would want the world to see him as a good guy. But inside he was just that scared little boy.
mm-hmm.
every day was that scared little boy, but he showed up, but he was still that scared little boy.
Mm-hmm.
And now, as I've been doing this work, I see myself. I see myself as that human man that still struggles, that still makes mistakes, but has grown to a level that I can accept myself,
Mm-hmm.
that I can look at myself in the mirror, jiggle all my bits, and love that guy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, love the imperfections, love the character, love the goofiness, love the carefree, wanting to just see the best in people and the world.
Mm-hmm. Just letting those layers of judgment go, eh?
And about myself first.
Yeah.
Because if I'm trying to love somebody, or if I'm trying to show somebody love, how can I show them? Looking back at relationships, why they failed, my marriages that failed, my relationships, even friendships that failed, I cared more about them than I did myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would put everything into them, and then in turn resent that, because why don't they see me?
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't they seeing all the things that I'm doing? How can they not? Look at me. Look at what I'm doing. But it was doing it to be seen versus doing it for my growth.
Yeah. From your heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as we kind of started this before we started recording, that talking about that authenticity of loving oneself and being able to be honest with myself, where there's still days where I have darkness. There is, oh my gosh, because as much light as we have darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's embracing both sides. It's embracing the light, it's embracing the darkness, and balancing that yin and yang.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for
Totally.
myself, that's been because I never wanted to see the dark. I never wanted to see Craig can be an asshole, or Craig can be this guy, or Craig can be that guy.
Mm-hmm.
But trust me, it is very much alive in there.
Mm-hmm.
That if it needs to come out, it is there.
Totally.
Not that it comes out often, but it is definitely there.
Yeah, and it's still a judgment. You know, it's still a judgment of an aspect of self. But I suppose what we come back to is our desire to take responsibility based on our environment.
Yes.
So if we were to change environments and go to a different planet where everybody was behaving completely differently, and we realized that they had this vulnerability, but our sense of behavior, like our tracking of our behavior and how it impacted our environment, flipped on its head, then our judgment would be seen through a different lens, right? So in other words, there's nothing fixed. It's all just responsive, you know, and being tethered to our center. I suppose it's that too, for me, like the spiritual journey of, and the spiritual journey being connected to my journey in relationship, which is to be in my heart, to be in my body, to be responding, not reacting. And so, you know, my partner, you know, and we have a very sacred bond, and a part of that contract is for her to test that capacity whenever I'm least expecting it, or least capable of embodying that, right? And that's a part of our agreement, and I signed somewhere. I do not have a copy of that agreement anywhere, but it exists. Yeah, just look after those terms. I don't remember that being there.
Fine print. What did I agree to? And
Yeah.
I think my partner again as well. You know, and it's just it is that, like, there's things that she does and things that test me, brings me back to that realization that, man, I still have work to do. Like,
Mm-hmm.
holy shit.
Yeah.
Did I have to react that way? And that was a reaction versus maybe needing her where she needed me to meet her.
Yeah, totally. And it's that person who we have the deepest level of care for and sense of responsibility for, you know, to be there for them at the highest level that we can. So it's a perfect setup, you know, for growth if we're willing to take those steps. And then, you know, there are people who are in a bit of a different dynamic where they're trying to stop being the yes man to the person who's implying that all they want is the yes man. There was a period of time where I was just noticing this pattern of yes men, you know, getting drawn into a relationship with a woman that wanted that. And then she leaves him because he's not stepping up into a more masculine way. So there's a paradox. And that was happening left, right, and center.
Yeah.
So it was too much to ignore. And ultimately, that was my journey, was to get out of being the nice guy and into my heart. And so you would think that the nice guy's in the heart, but it's not. The nice guy's in the head.
Yeah.
At least, how we define it in men's work, right? So being kind and being nice have very different connotations for me,
Yeah, it's
and being
interesting that
authentic. Yeah.
it's interesting because that's, the fable is like the women want the bad boy, but then they want a nice guy. And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, so how do I balance being, as I said, the asshole and the nice guy, the one that's
Hmm.
bringing the flowers to the one that's being like, hey, that's not okay. You treated me
Hmm.
roughly there. That wasn't okay. And having the backbone to stand up to be like, hey, are you okay? Is there something going on? Do we need to have a chat here?
Hmm.
Because you're coming at me with things that I actually have no idea what you're coming at me for or why you're coming at. And it's interesting because I've used the analogy with the men, and even in our group, of that men are like the port, men are like the wharf, that we are there to hold the storm. So when the storm comes in, being the feminine, a storm comes in, kicks the shit out of the wharf, kicks the crap out of it. And some days it does damage. And then it's for the men, it's that ability to rebuild that wharf, and sometimes daily.
Hmm.
What do I need to do to catch myself? Do I need to, do I need to take this personally? It's like the men. Do I need to take their hurt personally?
Hmm.
Or can I hold that container? And I think for me, the men's group has shown me that there's a lot of things that I can hold, and it's
Yeah.
given me the skills and the ability to hold that for literally anybody, and then we'll be able to transfer that into my relationships. And even, I mean, my children, my daughter, my 10-year-old daughter, she tests me to a degree. And anybody that's a parent will hopefully be able to understand and agree with this, that that's our ultimate test, is not just our partners, but it's our children
Hmm.
saying things or doing things. And, my daughter will get worked up and it'll just be like, yes, daddy, and she just gets so bent out of shape, where all I said is like, okay, let's not maybe worry about buying this toy, but let's buy this toy. And it's just the end of the world,
Hmm.
and I think that
Hmm.
as that human side, that then translates into a lot more things than we fully understand. And I
Totally.
think with our partners, sometimes when they hear us say no, or I don't have the ability, or I can't do that, that little girl inside comes out, and then that temper tantrum or whatever it happens to be at the moment, that sometimes is really hard, for myself to hold. And some
Hmm.
days it is too much. Some days, and I have been that yes man. I've
Hmm.
actually, most of my life, I was that yes man, because that's what I
Hmm.
was taught.
Hmm.
My mom, and those wounds that are there, were taught to sit there and take it, no matter what a person or a woman is doing to you. You take it. And that even
Hmm.
transposed into some of my earlier trauma and wounds, as my body, that I just are supposed to take it, that I don't
Hmm.
have the right to say no.
Hmm.
And I think for myself and my relationships, I never said no. I just
Hmm.
always said yes.
Yeah, totally. And it seems like the objective is to, like, if you're looking at a goal, if there is one, or an ideal, if there is one, is to be able, when there's a no, that the no comes out without a second thought, and it comes out firmly, but without aggression. And we don't need that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's because most men, that everybody that I've worked with and have the honor to sit with, is love. And
Yeah.
that's actually all they want. They just want to be seen. They want to be loved. They want to just, and they will give the world. They will literally give everything that they can to that person that will show them.
Yeah. Totally. And then the reality, though, is that sometimes, the no is met with violence.
Yeah.
And it might be physical, but, typically, let's say that if it's a child or a partner, or a man in the men's group, it may be just a really intense vocalization of disappointment, and with words. And, as a segue, because I do see that our end point, when you see a really aligned couples, as they become elderly, the polarity is basically gone, and they're not bickering, and they're in harmony, ostensibly, with some exceptions, with some little dusting here and there, but they're an eldership. And so, like, the masculine and feminine is far, far more balanced within each, as they're walking each other home. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
It's sort of simple. And they're both kind of like these gurus that
Yeah.
just kind of like Teflon, letting things kind of slide off of them.
I love that terminology of walking each other home,
Yeah.
because that's actually all we're doing. as men with men, as leaders with children, or as leaders with standing. And the way I look at it, they are the leader.
And we posture ourselves that way, and we act out, that role. But the whisper behind us of the aligned feminine
Yes.
has the highest reach for wisdom, in that partnership, right?
Yeah.
Of that divine feminine is kind of whispering things to her,
Yeah.
not to us.
Yeah.
And that's to keep us, because there'll be zingers that'll help us remind us that, oh,
Thank you
okay. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me of my place,
Yeah.
and then I can go back into my role, but sometimes I have to be put in my place. And and it can be done kindly,
And yes, and I think
but it's difficult to get there.
Yeah, and I think that's the beautiful balance. Like you said, that it is a dance. It's like, in any dance, there has to be somebody that takes the lead.
Yeah.
But there's still that person that if they don't want to follow, if they're not capable of, then that's where
Totally. And if you're leading, what are you leading?
And what?
Right? Like you've seen men leading and they're just following what they've been taught, and they're not listening to the woman, the feminine that's before them.
Yeah.
If they're attuned to that, their dance is going to look different because their heart is attuned to that message that's coming in through the feminine. So it's like
beautiful. And isn't it funny that we, again, as boys, we're raised with this, well, don't feel, don't do this. If you slam your hand in the car door, don't show emotion, don't show it. But true manhood, in my idea, is we actually need to show emotion. We need to be balanced. And I think for myself, I've really, truly, I think for myself, has come into that balance of my femininity and my masculinity. That there's times where I can be the softest, biggest guy, teddy bear, and then I can also stand in a crowd and people like, okay. And I actually never say that I'm not. I never say that I'm the teddy bear. But it's okay, because I think that representation of what that safety, even for the feminine, they need that. They want that. And I think for myself, then I want that femininity to show up for me in that vulnerable moment.
Totally. We can pass the baton from time to time.
Yeah.
But you got to be able to stand up and dust yourself off, at a moment's notice. At a moment's notice.
Yes.
Yeah. I remember a ceremony moment. This is an ayahuasca, and the divine feminine was nurturing me, and it was such a beautiful thing. And then it started to turn into vines, and these insidious kind of parasitic vines. I was like, whoa! And I had to sit up, get my tobacco out, shake it off, and then, because it can become, it's like the addict, on the downtown east side is just covered in vines, covered in this, having gone too far, looking for that nurturing in a child state, having lost their sense of self, their sense of purpose. So to be nurtured as a man can be very beautiful and important, but to be able to respond, to know when enough, and we know if we're listening, we know when we're indulging. And when we indulge in that way where our spidey senses are going, okay, you've crossed the line. You need to sort of step out of this and into a different role, and we let it happen anyways. Then we know that there's a consequence. There always is. Like that storm, the mango madness can come out of left field. And it's like this. So what do you do with that? Well, there's boundaries. Like there's many things that you can do. But the point was, though, is that, as we're working through these different aspects of self, the tests there might be the odd shiv, from our partner.
That would
be from behind the kidney.
I need to pull over, step up, take the keys. I should take the keys and just catch my breath for a moment. That would be, I would have been like, what the fire truck?
And she's not saying it when you're in your masculine, when you're able to laugh it off, like you're in that tender. Exactly. Those kidneys are, they're open.
Right
they're
there.
Showing.
That one. I'll actually outline it. Here it is. I've got the Sharpie out. It is outlined. That spot right there. Wow.
Totally.
That would, and it's interesting because I've myself have had those moments, and then that collecting myself of like, is that myself? Is that where I'm at? And no, it isn't. But in the past, I've been in those moments, and I didn't react well. I didn't react in the way that a masculine man should react. And that safety of knowing who I am versus the wounded man, the wounded boy, that would come out in those moments.
I find that when the body gets activated that sharply, that quickly, that it's very difficult for me to stay embodied.
Yeah.
And then old patterns come in, old like examples of how my dad did it in that situation when I was like 7 years old. And I realized that when I'm out of body and completely in fight or flight, I'm becoming these other people. You can't get less embodied than actually becoming somebody else. Right.
The mask.
Yeah.
The mask comes back.
The
protectiveness.
Well, that's what it's there for, right? It's stored there for those situations, but it's like,
and I think
doesn't work.
That realization of that's why this journey and this work doesn't end. I think that, to try and think that, oh, I'm a guru or I know all these things. No, it's, to me, that's the embodiment of experience. That's the embodiment of growth, is when you know that I'm still working. And an example this week that I had cashed in some lotto tickets, and the gas stations only have so much money, so they can't cash in some of the bigger prizes. So I stopped at the casino here in Seminar and went to take it in, and all of a sudden the security guard comes up. It's parked where I normally park. I only run in 5 minutes. Well, that's a fire lane. You can't park there, sir. And I kind of got a little uppity. I'm like, there's no signs. So I'm like, that's fine. Whatever, I'll move. I moved the car. I had my daughter would see the car. She's 10. She's, quite capable of. I was sitting there for a minute. Anyhow, I moved the car. Then he came out again and lectured me about leaving my daughter in the car. And he said, in actual fact, children are not allowed on the premises. They're not even allowed in the parking lot. I'm starting to get uppity again. For me, when somebody tells me I can't do something or tells me I have to follow a certain rule, oof, that's definitely a tough one for me. And I found myself starting to get worked up. And I looked at myself and I looked at this guy. For a second, I'm like, okay, this is, I kind of said, this is bullshit. And I walked away. He said, well, you can come in this time. And I'm like, actually, I'm good. Thank you. And I just left. But then catching myself as I was traveling away, this guy's just doing his job. He's only doing his job. He's not he wasn't coming at me like, wow. But it was that part in me where those old wounds of somebody telling me that I can't do it, even though I quite capable of catching myself. And it was like that kind of that reverted back to what the fire truck, like, no, you're like, who are you to tell me what I can and can't do, or where I can park and I can't park? But this guy was just a human doing his job, and that part in me, because even when I got in the car, my daughter's like, oh, what was wrong, Daddy? What was going on? Was that man not being nice? And
right.
I'm like, no, sweetheart.
Looking for those definitions.
He was fine. He was fine. He just daddy just needs a moment,
totally.
and just letting her see, and I think that's really important or powerful too. Our children need to see our humanness.
Yeah.
Our children need, and especially for our daughters, need to see us as men being men, but being that safety.
Yeah. Yeah. And then when they look for partners, because they're going to be looking for that kind of vibration. Yeah. That resonance. Even if it's a horrifying resonance, that's still what they're going to be looking for, because it feels like relationship. Like love.
Feels like what it's supposed to be. Whether it's wrong, like utterly wrong, or utterly perfect.
Totally. Our unconscious definition of love. That's Michael Brown. Right. Yeah, a writer.
Right or wrong.
Yeah, totally. And it's crazy. That we're made up that way, that we can. But if you consider that we're just, organisms in this quantum soup of feedback. Right. And so obviously, like, we don't, all we know is what we know.
Yeah.
And what has been.
Your examples.
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Good or bad. It's just what we understand to be.
It's beautiful, because as a child, it was funny. And it comes up every once in a while still, that I used to do anything to get attention. So even if it was the attention was bad, I still got attention. So I would purposely do something stupid or do something that I was totally out of character just to get that attention.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I catch myself, sometimes, not so much anymore, but for years past, I would do things still, even with my partner, I'd poke at her. And still, there's still times where I poke at her or do something silly or stupid, just to get either a rise or to get a bit of that attention that I'm actually craving for in that moment. And sometimes that lack of ability to say, hey, I'm kind of feeling a little left out, or I actually want you to pay attention to me right now. But instead of having the strength to say that, I'll poke, or I'll be like, whatever it is, just something that I know is going to annoy her
Mm-hmm.
and take her to a level that I know I'm going to get a reaction. And it's
Totally.
not necessarily the reaction that I want, but but it's still a reaction.
When I'm worn out, or if I'm getting a cold or something, my child
Oh yeah.
self is far more, it's like, oh, where'd you come from? And I've learned that now that's my opportunity. What I will tell her, my partner, is that I need some alone time.
Yeah.
I gotta go spend some time with Mr. Tobacco. Just smoke some,
Yeah.
do some prayers, do my practice, right? And just come back into my heart, maybe have a nap, self-care,
Yeah.
because it's really hard for me to be around her when that child is just sort of lingering. And I can be around her, but what's difficult is to not have those little remarks come out, because I only see them in the rear view mirror.
Yeah.
Because they just slip out. That's not fair to her or me. Because then she's like, "Okay, you want to go?
Loki, round 12.
Yeah.
Let's go. Ding, ding.
Totally." Often she'll be like, "I don't want to go," but sometimes there'll be something in her that has been waiting for that.
Yeah.
Right. So you're buying it.
Yeah. You were going to see, I told you
Yeah.
you were going to do that. And then you were like,
Yeah.
what? All they said is I wanted some attention. Oops.
Yeah.
And the
Sideways
the
way.
crazy part is they're doing the same thing we are.
Yeah.
They're
It's
they're
like
just
quantum soup.
yeah.
Yeah. And I think like when your daughter said, is that a bad person, or what is he being mean or something?
Is he upset?
It's very natural for us to be looking for signifiers, things that give us orientation. So like stereotypes and all those things are pretty obviously going to happen if we're not careful, if we're not continuing to level up. And also people that have a paradigm of Christ or other religious orientations, there's definitely a leg up when it comes to orientating, around a figure that is, that can be a role model, even if it's a spiritual or religious figure. The trappings of religion, and the power structures that come out of religion, that's a whole other conversation. But to grow up without that, with a clean slate, we're going to be wondering, what is this? What is that? How, Daddy, what is this? What does this mean? Did he do this? And because it can be a bit disorientating as an adult. So you can only imagine for a child if you're trying to bring, exactly.
Yeah,
and they're happy to be in that too, that la la land. But when they need to start to put things together so they don't get in trouble, and so they can walk a good path, and they need that orientation, and cobbling together that mythology and that passage is.
And I think even, the beautiful part is, even if a couple, mom and a dad are watching this, you do this. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, and then the part of, and again, as men and then the other part is your partner is your ex on this journey as well. Mm-hmm. Are they on a spiritual journey? Are they on a journey of healing? And that just opens up another can of worms for that child.
Totally.
And as an adult or as the parent, you're trying to navigate that. It's like, I can't say what mom's doing, but this is what daddy's doing.
There's the navigating, and then there's the confusion, seeing this, seeing that, but it can be a blessing, I believe, for a human, a child, to be able to witness two separate paradigms and ways of being that both work.
Yeah.
Because that will help them not have these, monocle kind of, way of seeing the world.
Yeah.
That this is
the way it has to be.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when they get into relationship with somebody who had an entirely different upbringing.
Yeah, that's coming from a different.
And often in this day and age too, it's not just the somebody from your tribe or from your church or whatever. It's somebody that's had a very different upbringing, which is, again, makes it harder, but there are opportunities for leveling up. So
it's interesting what we are attracted to.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Exactly. I used to always think that it was looks or is this. Yeah. And now it's energy. For me, it's what do I see in you? What do I see? And not just your potential, because I think in my past, I've definitely had that opportunity to be like in what's being shown. And I catch myself like, okay, am I in love with the person's potential, or am I in love with
my dream?
Projection. What I projection of what they are, or what I see them being versus what they actually are. And I think for a lot of the individuals that I have the opportunity to sit with or work with, I see that. I see
Yeah.
that because I've seen it in myself. So I see that when they speak and be like, well, this is what I thought she was going to be,
Mm-hmm.
thought she was going to be versus what
Wow.
she actually is.
Expectation.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a big
Yeah.
one. I think we're all working on that in relationship all the time.
Yeah.
On a regular
Daily. Yeah.
basis. Yeah, it's a daily thing. And it
Yeah.
has to do with our attachment and our, the old paradigm, what we're used to, what we feel safe with. Even if that old paradigm, was an alcoholic, whatever, that can still be, why are you not like that person unconsciously? It's like, you really want me to be like that?
Yeah.
Well, no,
Yeah.
but I guess a part of me does.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
norm, what we're
Yeah.
used to. And it's interesting when people are in chaos, they're more comfortable in chaos than
That's it.
being out of it. The young, kids I used to work with like extensively for like high risk youth. It was interesting as I would come in, I would be the calm in the storm, and it would seem like they would be acting out more. Well, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and I'll be like, okay, doesn't matter what you do, just don't make me do paperwork. I'm going to meet
Yeah.
you where you are. This is who I am. I will do, you want to go to McDonald's? Let's grab an RC car. Let's grab, a pellet gun. Let's go shoot. Let's go do things.
Yeah.
Let's get the quad and go. And then I would get in trouble from the employer being like, well, you else can meet them like that. Well, then step up. Because that's what these kids need. They're used to the chaos. So they're used to them themselves acting out. And then as long as you're not breaking anything, as I said, don't make me do paperwork.
Yeah.
So I sometimes think about that in the relationship of like, you want to be chaos, you want to be these things, just don't make me do paperwork, and we'll get along fine.
Yeah. That's great.
I think that's, for myself, looking back at all these opportunities for growth, this is stuff that you can't put a price on. The friendships that have come out of this, our friendship that have come out of this, Mark, that I am honored to sit with you whenever you ask me or say something. I'm just like, I'm just like, absorb it and feel that love and the authenticity that you bring. So I think for myself,
Thanks,
as
brother.
watching how many people that as we grow, as we start, I think, truly leveling up, that's actually what we're attracting. Same desire, that want the sense of community, that want the sense of brotherhood, that you can feel safe in, that I'm not having to put a mask on anymore. I don't want to wear masks anymore. I've got a lifetime of masks in closets that I don't want to wear anymore.
Yeah. Just be a humble human.
Just human.
The
humanness.
human. I guess that kind of touches on the 2.0 as we went backwards and then forwards into the present. Is there anything else that you would add to, I still have that image of that dark hallway. It's like, what's in here? And then
having that
torch gets lit. You can see Craig's face, Men's Circle 2.0. And then a kind of a come this way, join me.
I think for the most part that this next stage in this evolution of this group is, I guess, again, my own growth, but also allowing men to show up. In the first, I would be like, well, you've got to do this, you got to read this book, or you got to do this. Now it's more of to honor you, and I will do my best to be hopefully a quiet example of what I believe I can do to be better. Something you want to follow? Awesome, because I'll show you what I'm doing. I'll show you what I'm associating with. And that's a really big one that I've noticed for most people. Most people don't have good people to hang around with. They're hanging around with the same people that they think they want to change, or they think they want to grow or do something different, but yet they're hanging out with the same people that are doing the things that they don't want to do anymore. And that's something that I've really seen. So I think this 2.0 is kind of a segue to that this work is not easy, but if you're willing to put the work in, this is the outcome. It's just like taking a course on understanding literature. Well, to understand literature, that means reading. That means, and maybe you're not the strongest reader. Well, I'm not the strongest reader, but I know that if I'm taking this course, I'm paying money to take this course. So I want to get the most out of it. I want to be able to grow the most. And I think now, like moving into this, where we're going with this incredible journey is being open enough to see the people that are ready, men that are ready to actually, and it's interesting because the amount of men that even over the summer that have approached me about this, come for a coffee and let's sit down and have a chat, whether that's with Mark or one of the other men that are a part of the group. And I find that really, really powerful when there's other men, not just me, talking about what we're doing or showing examples of what we've been doing is really powerful, because then either young or old, they're ready for men to trust other men. Most men can't look other men in the eye. If you ever approach most men, they'll look down or they'll look away or they do anything but make eye contact. Because it means like in the animal world, it's like, oh, are you threatening me? Are you coming at me? Why are you looking at me like that? Versus like, I actually want to see you. I want to see where you are on your journey. I want to see where you are able to meet yourself and ready for me to maybe just help you remember who you are, because you've always had the power. Everybody has the intuition and everybody has that knowledge of maybe they just have enough stand, okay, well, putting a nail in, you need a hammer, and maybe to put a screw in, well, you need a screwdriver. Different tools for different events in life. And I think what we were building with the men's group is that toolbox that we're building. Like literally, it's a snap-on toolbox now that is full of every tool. For we need to pull a bearing, well, we've got the bearing pull, a slide hammer. We've got all these tools that we're now able to use and show each other how to use them. As a young man, how do we learn these things? We weren't taught. And I know what you're creating and what we've discussed is that part of teaching young men the rite of passage, teaching young men to be better. And to me, that's part of the answer. Well, now, if we're working on the dads, that segue to their sons or their daughters, I've seen it. It is beautiful to watch. Again, and that's not saying anything except that men are willing to show up. They're wanting to show up because they are wanting to change. They're wanting to be better. They're wanting to do and have a relationship that they've actually always wanted versus what they've just settled for.
Yeah, when you choose to be of service, there's an endless amount of work to be done. The elders, they definitely, that I've witnessed, they do very little. They're there at the right time somehow. They say very little, but the things they say land.
Yeah.
And then they're not attached to the outcome. So being able to accept the pace at which they're going and whether they need to step away and then step back, but always being there to have that conversation for that leveling up that you're talking about. Yeah. So yeah, it's just like
you said, the stepping away. That's something that I've really learned that in this work, I've actually had to separate myself sometimes, that I actually had to pull myself back because that attachment that a lot of people or some people feel they need or want, they'll latch on and all of a sudden they realize that you've stumbled and fall. You're just as human.
The projection part from the other side. Yeah.
And that's a really big one. It's hard because you see the best in these people, even like your partner, you see the best, you want the best for them. But are they willing to do that? Yeah. Are they willing to show up for themselves and do that work? That's a big one. And I think the 2.0 is allowing people to not spoon feed them, not passing the pacifier to them when they're having a fit or when they start getting upset about something.
Yeah.
Okay. When you're ready, I'm here.
Totally. Staying away from those prickly situations, like the little setups. Yeah. Because that is that person or the people, trying to recreate that experience that was from their past. That is their unconscious definition of safety and love, even though it's chaos. So yeah, I've seen those setups from further distance now. And it's like, no, I'll just tiptoe around that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
No, thanks.
And I think that's just it is in my past, I would have tried to fix it. I would have
get right in there and try to
I can do this. But the more I witnessed me doing that, it just made it worse. It actually literally created more fire and created more chaos than actually needed to be.
Yeah.
I think sometimes when people come back to me, be like, hey, I'm really sorry for that. Even my partner, I'm really sorry for that moment. Okay. Well, how do we not do that again? How do we not fall into that same narrative and then without even having to say anything, sometimes just accepting that and just instead of that part of well, I told you, I tried to tell you that, well, look at me, I'm righteous and I'm right. And it actually means nothing. I don't want to fight to be right anymore. This is the journey I'm on. If you would like to come with me, come on board. If the train is leaving the station.
Yeah.
And I don't need to project my wounds, because I've still got wounds. I still got skeletons in the closet that I look at every once in a while. I'm like, I've got to deal with that. Again, that human side in me is worried that Pandora's box, once it's open, cannot be closed. So I think, and it's interesting because through the men's group, I have learned so much more about myself. I've learned so much truth about who I used to think I was. And truth about who I actually am in this moment. Not the Craig from 6 months ago, not the Craig from 10 years ago, but the Craig in this day, right now, in this moment, power of now at the heart. This is where I'm at. There is nothing else. There's no past. There's no future. So really allowing myself to be present. And even now, understanding that the opportunity to sit and discuss these matters, it's something I wish I would have done 40 years ago, but I wasn't ready. I know even when I started my own group out of my home, out of my garage, I actually wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready to step into that role of somebody that somebody could look at and be, that's kind of what I want to be. And I'm still working on it. It's something that I work on because as I said, I look at myself. So I want to be that person that when I look at myself, I'm like, I would follow me. I would follow myself into this, that we have that when we slow down, we can feel comfortable enough to be with somebody to walk those journeys. Because sometimes, and I believe we're not supposed to do this alone. We never were. Totally. This the inner work, this work from our childhood, this work from men, learning to be better men, has to be with men, has to be with somebody that honestly sees and wants the best for us. Like from our heart and our core, not to look at me, look at how many people I've saved, but I want that authenticity in myself to be a reflection of this is my journey. And I'm learning every day. I still make mistakes. I still trip and fall, but every day I get back up and pick that torch back up because I never know who's following me. I never know who's watching. I never know who's supposed to be there.
You just know you got to pick the torch up. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Becoming the mentor we never had. Yeah. And there are mentors out there too. Yeah. Later in life, I'm discovering.
Yes, very much so.
Definitely was missing that. That's a big part of, my purpose and the fire behind that. So I think we have common ground there for sure. Yes. Any final words for the men out there about the men's circle before we close it up?
I think the biggest thing for myself to be able to relay is just trust. If you're feeling that there's something more, if you're feeling that there's a calling inside of you to start this work, trust it and it'll be okay. And trust it. Allow it to actually, for once, happen. Don't second guess yourself. Trust your intuition. Trust that this work is probably the most powerful work you'll ever undertake to do. So I'm honored. If anybody comes in, I'm honored. Thank you.
Direction and a baby step.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
Right? One bite at a time.
There you go. I hope that doesn't ever happen.
Right. Yeah. Poor elephant.
Yeah. You wouldn't be hungry.
No.
Okay. Thank you, Craig.
Mark.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Sacred Village podcast. This is Mark K. Lewis. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Have a beautiful day. Over and out. I lay my head down. Check out my lovely partner's music, Christina Jessen, at christinajessen.com. And there's also more information on what we're doing. We're doing a land project up here, traditional land development with a community intention. And if you're interested in any of the retreats that we're a part of and part of organizing, you can find all that information at sacredvillagepodcast.com. Have a wonderful day. Like a feather